Today we're going to be tying a crawfish pattern. Going to be showing you how to tie this version of crawfish pattern thanks to a friend of mine that's been tying for quite some time. We're going to be using some different types of materials. Going to be using some red chenille for the head. I'm going to be using some brown and olive chenille for the body. I'm going to do the shell casing with a speckled olive thin skin. The legs will be done with a hackle feather. We're going to use squirrel tail. You could use gray and black if you would like. I like the kind of the burnt brown and black color myself. Be using squirrel tail for the pinchers. I'm going to be using a little bit of brown marabou for the tail feather. Lead wire to weight the hook so the hook tip rides up in the water. Going to be using a little bit of copper wire to create the segments in the body. And we'll be using the little black dumbbell eyes. So how we'll get started is I'm going to take a fairly large size hook, streamer style hook, straight shank. I'm going to go roughly, take a pair of pliers, and I'm going to go roughly about midway between the hook point and the eye of the hook, and I'm going to actually bend the hook. Just going to make a slight bend in the hook. That's going to allow this so when the crawfish pattern rides up and you pull it, the hook's going to kind of sit up off of the ground, and then when you pull it, it'll kind of pull down like a an actual crawfish would do. So we're going to place the hook in the vise. First thing I'm going to do is I've got a 25 thousandths lead weight. I'm going to start right at about the hook where I bent the hook, and then I'm going to go back. It depends on the length of your hook, about 20 wraps or so. Don't want to crowd the eye. I probably want to leave about 1/4 of an inch off. I'm going to just pinch that lead off and wrap the excess around. Push that down just a little bit. Also, I take just a clear fingernail polish in to seal the lead, so it will it'll help hold that lead to the hook shank. Let that dry for a minute. I'm using just a Ultra 210 denier olive colored thread. Just going to start that in front of the lead, and I like to go around the lead just to kind of tie it in. Don't have to be real tight about it. All I want to do is just tie in the lead so it doesn't slide up the hook shank. That, wrap it up. I'm going to take the thread all the way up. All this is going to be covered, so it doesn't have to be uniformed or in line. I'm going to kind of take all that up till about just right at about the hook point. What's nice about having a rotary vise is I can kind of turn that over Then I'm going to take a pheasant tail feather, and I'm going to just pull off a couple of fibers here. I'm actually going to pull two at the same time. And these are going to be my antennas. I like to cut the tips off just so it don't create a lot of bulk on the hook. I'm going to take two, kind of where they kind of flare out, and I'm just going to tie one in on the near side of the hook shank. Just do a few wraps there. Then I'm going to rotate the vise, and actually I'm going to make sure I can measure this so I can get them tied in at the same length. Take about 2 wraps, get this one lined up. I want to make sure that they are even, about the same length. Kind of pinch down on them in the front, and this I'm just going to kind of wrap back. And just kind of wrap those pheasant tail feathers down. Then I'm going to come back right at about the hook point again, and we're going to tie in the dumbbell eye. Set it at a 45-degree angle. Just take a few wraps over, just kind of hold it in place, and just do kind of a figure 8. You don't have to tie this one in, you know, where it's not rotating or not, because once we tie the chenille in, it's pretty much going to hold the eyes in place. So even if they're just kind of get those centered and sitting upright toward the hook point with the eye of the hook bent up a little bit. From here I want to tie in my thin skin. You're just going to take the thin skin and you're just going to cut about 1/4 inch in thickness off of the thin skin. I like to go ahead and cut this tip at an angle. Just makes it easier to tie in. You don't have all the bulk there when you go to fold it back over at the end of the process. So I'm going to just peel the backing off of the thin skin. And I place the thin skin pretty much right above the eye. Just going to kind of take a loose wrap. Get this to line up. Just a loose wrap to catch that, and just barely start to pull down, tighten up. Then I'm going to go back behind the eyes and pull that tag down. And that's pretty much all you need, just to kind of secure that into place. Everything else is, all the other material we're going to put in is going to kind of keep that held down. And I just kind of pull that back out of the way for right now. Then I'm going to do the head part around the eyes. I'm going to take some red chenille. I'm going to cut probably 2.5 inch long piece. I always like to pull the chenille off the end and show the thread just a little bit. It just makes it easier to capture and hold the chenille in place. It's just more of a personal preference. So a couple loose wraps, tighten that down real good. Then we're going to take the chenille and just kind of wrap it around a couple turns behind. Then I'm going to do a kind of a figure eight style around the eyes. I just do one around the eyes is all you need. And then kind of come back and tie this off with a few wraps. And trim the tag in. Okay, so now we've got the head part of the crawl pattern